The list starts with the marriage between Henry VII and Elizabeth of York, the marriage that ended the War of the Roses and founded the Tudor dynasty. Tall, blonde, and fair, beautiful skin, Elizabeth of York was described by contemporaries as kind, gentle, and very sweet. Henry was 9 years older than her. As heiress to the House of York, she was the obvious wife for him, allowing the union between York and Lancaster, ending the War of the Roses. However, Henry Tudor had no intentions of dividing power. He arranged his own coronation before the wedding on October 30th, 1485. The marriage took place on January 18th, 1486, and Elizabeth immediately proved to be a successful queen. 9 months later, a male successor came into the world, Arthur Tudor. On November 25th, 1487, Elizabeth was crowned queen consort. At the time, they were a seemingly perfect couple, and the idea that they were happy together is almost consensual. They were the founders of a powerful dynasty. During their marriage, Elizabeth had 8 children, 4 of whom survive. Arthur, Margaret, Henry, and Mary also had impressive marriages. A great sign of the love between them was Elizabeth's death on February 11th, 1503. Henry VII departed privately to a solitary place and did not want anyone to disturb him. The 4th place may be a source of controversy, but it is a marriage that was over 70 years old. I'm talking about the union of Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip. At the age of 13, Princess Elizabeth had a remarkable meeting with Prince Philip, he was 18, on a visit to the Royal Naval College, where the young prince was a naval cadet. After that meeting in 1939, the two began exchanging letters throughout World War II and fell in love. Their engagement was formally announced in 1947, and they married that year. The relationship between the Queen and her husband was dubious. During the 7 decades of their relationship, he was faithful to the Queen, but unfaithful to his wife. Philip always had a rebellious attitude towards court etiquette and protocol. In the beginning, he did not conform to the role as prince, but he tamed himself over the years. There are dozens of curious stories and conflicts attributed to Philip. His relationship with his son Charles was the most controversial issue. He even stated several times that he did not like the heir's attitudes and demeanor. He did not want Charles to be divorced from Diana and hated Camilla Parker. Several documentaries and historians have reported on Prince Philip's affairs. However, the Queen's glacial stance upheld what she held most dear, the monarchy's image, and a queen with a satisfying married life is essential. Even with these scandals, the Queen and the Prince lived together for 73 years. In the 3rd position, we have the marriage between the Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, Leopold I, and the Infanta Margaret Theresa. Margaret Theresa is known for the painting Las Meninas by Velázquez. She was born on July 12, 1651, the daughter of Philip IV of Spain, and his second wife, Mariana of Austria. Despite the high degree of consanguinity in the family, Margaret Theresa was a pretty girl with a sweet and cheerful character. For political reasons, Margaret Theresa became engaged as a child to her maternal uncle and paternal cousin Leopold I, Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, 11 years older than her. Since the heir to the Spanish throne was not born until 1661, and fearing the survival of the crown, Philip IV stipulated that she was to retain her position in the line of succession to the Spanish throne and pass the rights of succession to her descendants. Leopold I gladly accepted this. In the summer of 1666, the Infanta, age 15, left Spain and made her way to Austria, where she was solemnly welcomed by Leopold I. The wedding took place on December 5th of that year in Vienna. Despite the age difference and Leopold I's ugliness, the couple was quite happy. They had several interests in common, such as music and theater. Interestingly, Margaret Theresa called her husband uncle. The emperor seemed to live intensely in love, to the point that doctors advised him to reduce his sexual activity to preserve his health. But the advice was useless. During the 6 years of their marriage, the Empress gave birth to 4 children. Margaret had poor health, an unfortunate consequence of the decades of consanguineous marriages among the Habsburgs. The several pregnancies, with her body still far from fully matured to give birth, worsened her condition. She eventually died during a miscarriage or premature birth on March 2, 1673, a few months shy of her 22nd birthday. Devastated, but still without an heir, Leopold I married a few months later. But this second marriage also left no descendants. The monarch only had children in his third marriage, the future emperors Joseph I and Charles VI, the latter of whom fathered the illustrious Empress Maria Theresa. His only daughter with Margaret had a brief and unhappy life. The second place was a bang at the time and radically altered world geopolitics. It was the successful royal marriage between Ferdinand of Aragon and Isabella of Castile. Isabella was born on April 22, 1451, Ferdinand on March 10, 1452. At the time, there was not yet a country called Spain. The Spanish territory was divided into different kingdoms. Isabella's father was the King of Castile in the central part of the territory. Ferdinand's father was King of Aragon in the northeast of present-day Spain. In 1469, Ferdinand and Isabella married. Isabella chose her husband despite the opposition of her brother, who did not want her to inherit the crown. Wisely, the future queen fled her brother's clutches and secretly married the future king of Aragon. The union of the two had a gigantic political impact, as well as a productive, intimate relationship. Isabella inherited the throne of Castile in 1474. Her rights were contested by King Alfonso V of Portugal. After a war that lasted until 1479, Isabella was recognized as queen. In that year, Ferdinand became King of Aragon. The two united kingdoms began the formation of Spain. Ferdinand and Isabella made Catholicism the only religion allowed in the country. Islam and Judaism were forbidden. In 1478, a court was established that severely treated non-Catholics. This religious court became known as the Spanish Inquisition. In 1492, Jews who had not converted to Catholicism were forced to leave Spain. In 1482, Ferdinand and Isabella declared war on the Kingdom of Granada, the last Moorish stronghold in Spain. The decisive victory occurred in 1492, unifying Spain as a Christian country. In late 1492, Ferdinand and Isabella provided Christopher Columbus with resources for his first voyage to America. The places where Columbus landed became Spanish colonies. As you can see, the marriage was a huge political success. In the private realm too. Despite Ferdinand's cheating, the Catholic monarchs had 6 children, and the parents strived to make sure that their offspring had the best marriages at the time. Isabella died on November 26, 1504. Ferdinand on January 23, 1516. And, first on the list, a healthy and lasting marriage. Princess Elizabeth and Gaston of Orleans, Count of Eu. This marriage had everything to go wrong. He was a foreigner, he found his wife ugly, and he didn't know her personally. Incredibly, they lived together from 1864 until 1921, the year Princess Elizabeth died. Gaston traveled to Brazil together with his cousin, Ludwig August, hoping to marry Pedro II's daughters, Isabel and Leopoldina. Gaston's father preferred that he marry Leopoldina, but made it clear that, if she was to his liking and trust, he would have to choose Isabel. They arrived in Rio de Janeiro on September 2, 1864. 2 days later, Emperor Pedro II told the French general who was escorting the boys that Gaston would marry Isabel. The princess was elated to hear this, but Gaston was upset. By marrying Isabel, he would be the consort of the only empire in America. Isabel felt that she was in the presence of a Prince Charming and quickly fell in love with her husband. Gaston was a very considerate husband to his wife. He tried to help her with her political education and comforted her in times when she felt destroyed by the loss of several children. After many attempts, the couple managed to have 3 descendants who made it to adulthood. Gaston did not have the sympathy of his father-in-law nor the Brazilian nobility. Being excluded from national decisions, he did everything he could to have a positive influence on the national political scene through community projects. He helped in the construction of schools, orphanages, and even in army-related bills. Popularly known simply as the Frenchman, constant criticism for issues beyond his responsibility and the way he managed public affairs made Gaston one of the most unpopular figures in the empire. This had consequences for the future Empress, who was opposed by the agrarian elites upon her ascension to the throne, especially after the abolition of slavery. After the fall of the monarchy in 1889, the couple moved to France, where they lived a happy life with their children. There are no reports of betrayals or violent arguments between the couple. Their relationship was always one of enormous complicity. Princess Elizabeth died on November 14, 1921. Gaston on August 28, 1922.